Today, we are going to make some grass. No, I'm not in Colorado, so it's not going to be that kind of grass. It's our techniques that are so simple and sensible, your models will practically build themselves. Hello folks, it's Mad Dog Merv and welcome to the Kit Hoarder Stash. So years ago I was qualified or quantified or whatever you want to call it. People would say, oh yeah, he's an aircraft model builder. Because I built primarily, when I really got back into the hobby some 25 plus years ago, I primarily built aircraft. Well, I've always been interested in tanks, and so from time to time I'll build a bunch of tanks. That's one of the things that I did when I was a little kid. Planes and tanks. That's kind of what I did. I also did a lot of ships, and from time to time I'll build a ship model, and you've seen me review or do a couple here on the channel. I actually am pretty prolific when it comes to ships. You folks haven't seen that yet, and hopefully one of these days we'll be able to put up some shows about that. One of the things that I never was much of a builder of was structures, buildings, like the Munster house back there. But when I built this HO scale shelf layout a couple of years ago, structures were just kind of part of the deal. So I got into this. I've been doing a lot, as you saw, with all the monster homes that I've built and reviewed. Today, we have something just a little bit different, and I say that every week. But yeah, we got something a little weird and different. So it's time to move inside. It's cool outside. And so we're going to do some interior decorating. There's some shelves that are going up and a beautiful, I can't remember the name of the painter, but some famous painter. It's like a $1,400, painting, Anyway, on the wall of San Francisco. And I'm looking to put a cable car on one of the shelves and like a lighthouse on the other shelf. What am I going to do? Go get some resin piece or something? No, watch this. Lindberg makes or made or makes or whatever you want to call it this model kit. It's a lighthouse, and we're going to put this thing together and we're going to put it on the shelf and see how that looks in the house. But today we're going to review this real quick. So I just received this not too long ago in the mail, so it didn't come out of my stash. It came out of somebody else's stash, so it's still part of somebody's stash. Lucky me, huh? I mean, this thing was less than 20 bucks with shipping. So it's 1/87th scale, meaning HO, and look, it's shrink wrapped. And my most favorite thing to do to a shrink wrapped model is remove the shrink wrap. Correct. Yeah, you know how I am. Models were meant to be built, just like cars were meant to be driven. I know. Terrible argument. People go, what? No. If I had that Hemi Cuda, I'd be driving it. Trust me, folks. So, here you go. The box has like the flag stuff on the side, and it looks the same on that side. The box is boring. Let's get into this kit. It's recommended for ages 10 and up. Well, if I ever mentally reach the age of 10, maybe I can build it. How about that? I just dropped a couple of pieces. They came right out. So there's this big bag of parts, and they're what looks like a light and some metal parts, parts. So I'm assuming that it's got a light in it and a wire and some destructions. We're going to put the box down, and we're going to first look at the destructions. Ooh, it has decals. But I think these decals have had it. Yeah, it's full of cracks. And I'm sure I could save them. I just don't know that I'm going to use decals. I'm probably going to paint what I'm going to do. And there's an American flag. That's nice. So, Lindberg Model Craft House Incorporated, Toledo. Holy Toledo. So we got to cut that wire into some and make a battery box for a light. And then the battery box goes into the base and all this other cool stuff. And then you build the lighthouse itself, put this on, the whaleboat, a few other things here, there, and around the square. Not a whole lot to the building of it. And then you put the light in, a little bit to that, and then it shows you how to paint it. It's what I call a weekend build. That's what I really like about it. It's a weekend build, and we're going to have this on the shelf in the house. Thomas Kincaid, that's the guy. Yeah, we got a Thomas Kincaid in there. So to accent the Kincaid, I'm just not that refined. I know it's a big surprise to all of you, but I'm just not that refined. I can't remember. I don't know whose it is. Joe Blow's paint. I don't know, but it's Thomas Kincaid. Okay, so here's the base. See? It's actually pretty neat. You can like paint the waves to look like waves and the rocks to look like rocks, and yeah, I think that's going to be pretty neat. Big battery box. I'm assuming it's 12, what do you call it, D-cell batteries. Hopefully I got some of those. Here's the lighthouse itself, 2 parts. So give you some idea how tall this thing is. A boat and a mast and a vast there, you know, a few other things like a winch. Top of the lighthouse. And this thing that's got kind of a whaleboat that's like sunken on the shore. Sure. And that's it. I'm out of parts. Everything else is these little metal parts, and then the two. It looks like a piece of clear that's here, and I'm going to grab that here in a minute. And I'm going to get started on this thing, and we're going to build it and show you how it turns out right here on the stash. So stick with us for this. Oh yeah, here's the clear pieces. So and this is right after Halloween, so I still got part of the costume on. Sorry about that, but anyway, yeah, here's the clear pieces. So all right, let's build it. So first off, I'm going to use a spray can of this Krylon Fusion White, and I'm going to go ahead and spray most of the model parts down. You can see here, fence, boats, you know, mast, all that kind of stuff, and the lighthouse halves itself. I also painted with that. Now it does take a while to dry. This is slow drying paint. So I went ahead and set it aside and got building on it. The next color is I took my gray 2X primer that I use for most everything, and I went ahead and painted the base. Sprayed the whole thing thoroughly. This is going to make a great base coat for the water, for the rocks, pretty much for all we're going to do here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start painting the green, and I decided to use these acrylic craft paints, and I did that for the grass, and you can see how that area turned out. Yeah, I kind of like it, kind of a nice pretty green, but we're going to do a couple things to it here and try and enhance it. For the water, I started out with this, I think it's called an Admiral Blue. It's a nice dark sea blue color. And then I used this cobalt blue kind of underneath the front of the waves. And then I used a little aquamarine and just kind of stippled that towards the crest of the waves. And you can see how that turned out here in this particular view, as well as the stones. And for the walkway stones and for the front part of the beach, I used a color called Soviet Sand. I mixed that with a little bit of the white to get the light color that I was really after here. I custom mixed some colors for the stairs. I can't even remember what they were. Just kind of a nice yellowish tan color. Now for the rocks, well, we went ahead and mixed up some more craft paint, just kind of a gray that was going to be lighter than the primer. So I mixed up some white and some black until I got the color gray that I really wanted, and then went over the rocks pretty thoroughly. I wanted this to be just a little bit lighter than the primer that was on there. So once we finish that, we give the whole thing a wash of Larry's bathwater. If you haven't seen my video on Larry's bathwater, don't know what it is, well, it's a pin wash, and check out that video. And you can see here how it's kind of gotten down into some of the cracks and crevices, how that water looks with even with Larry's bathwater on it, that kind of darkens the lower areas. Here I'm going to put it into the walkway, and you can see the stones just kind of pop and come alive. This stuff's like that hot sauce ad. I put that stuff on everything, and you can see I had to go back and put a second coat on certain areas. You can see the little wrecked boat here. The stairs have it on. The rocks have it on. And, well, once it's dried, it's really dark. It's really contrasting, but it's going to work out, you see. Trust me. Okay, so now we got to do the electronics. So I put the battery box together, which was pretty easy, pretty straightforward. I just needed to do some soldering to make sure that I got the wires in there permanently, because I don't want them to come loose, come out. It's going to take 2 D-cell batteries, and I got those, and we're going to see if this thing works. For the little building on here, I used the brown that I had for the walls, and for the ceiling, or for the roof, I used a little bit of black mixed with that brown. Went ahead and painted that whole thing, let it dry, put some Larry's bath water on it, and you can see how that turned out. We're going to add some highlights here in just a little bit, so stay tuned on that to see how that turns out. Got the wires run up through the hole, and well, we're about ready to assemble that whole thing now. You can see how this is all dry. We're going to put some white on the white caps, and we're going to start using a little bit lighter gray on the rock to start bringing out some of that highlighted detail. Again, this white is mixed with a little bit of black, so we're using shades of gray to bring that out. Now I'm going to take some Testor's flat red and thin it with some lacquer thinner, and we're going to go ahead and tape off the white. It's nice and dry. We're going to spray these areas with the red, including the very top. It says to paint it black, but we are going to go ahead and do it red for the purposes that we have. Paint went on fine. It flashed off quickly. I was able to mask it, paint it, unmask it. You know, half hour, this is done and ready to put on. And here it is. And yes, it does light up. I did the electronics right, and I'm pretty excited about that. Yeah, I think that's gonna look pretty good there on the shelf. As I get looking at it next to the painting, I think the red's a little too bright for the colors that are in the painting, so I'm going to make some changes. In the meantime, I want to enhance my water even more, so I'm going to take some acrylic gel heavy, and it's a high gloss by a company called Liquitex, and I'm going to smear that all over the waves. Once it dries, we're going to have a beautiful gloss. I put the fence up, the antenna, the winch, and the boat, and I've wired those up. Well, I've used some black thread to simulate the ropes on all of that. And, well, we've done one more kind of a highlight over the rocks and over the building with kind of a very light gray. Oh, and yes, we've added a flag. I said I was going to change the color on the lighthouse a little bit, so we're going to take some of this brown. We're going to mix it up with a little bit of red, and then we're going to mix just a little bit of black in to get the color that I really want. We're going to repaint those stripes by hand. It's an acrylic, it'll be fine. And here's the results. In the nice bright sun outside, you can see the water, how it turned out. In the sunlight, you can see how the rocks turned out with the subtle highlights. I went ahead and painted the railing around the top in a black. Figured that would be a little bit better. The one thing I really don't like about this kit is it was supposed to be a HO scale 187 kit, but I get a little HO figure I put on here, and he's a flippin' giant. I mean, the fence comes up to his kneecaps, you know. So this really is closer to N scale, like a 1/180th or 1/160th, somewhere in that area. But if you want it for like an N scale layout, it'd be great. But for an HO, this isn't going to work. But for my purposes, putting it on the shelf, I think it's going to work out just fine. And you can kind of see paint still drying there on the lighthouse, but it turned out all right. How the highlights are on that building and how the highlights are on the boat. and the highlights are on the rocks. So I like how it turned out. It's good for me. And here it is next to the Kincaid, and yep, I think I got the colors pretty close. So thanks for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this review.